welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. By the way, it's your business to know what you could likely be busted for, stuff you've been doing all the time that might very well be illegal. And I've got Daniel Dew from the Heritage Foundation, and he's written several great articles on this subject, the overcriminalization of America. And I honestly believe I've become very cynical. I don't understand why these laws, many of these ridiculous laws exist, except for the idea that the government wants to have a reason to be able to put you in jail if they ever need to put you in jail. You know, and I know that sounds kind of crazy and conspiratorial, but some of these laws are nutty. They don't make any sense except for that very reason. Daniel, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Am I a nut job? Should they be calling for the paddy wagon and the guys with the white jackets? You're laughing, but I don't know what that means. I mean, seriously, I mean, some of these laws are bizarre.
They are. We have seen an explosion of criminal law, and for those of your listeners who don't understand the concept of overcriminalization, basically it's the overuse and misuse of criminal law. Today there are over 4,500 criminal statutes in the federal code. There are over 300,000 regulations that impose criminal liability. Mm-hmm. It's no longer just rape, theft, murder, those kind of things being punished by the criminal law. Today we're seeing people imprisoned for importing orchids or eating French fries on the subway, digging a pond in your own backyard, selling raw milk.
I like this one. Charging your own cell phone?
Charging your own cell phone.
Where can that put you in jail?
A homeless man was charging his cell phone in a park, and the police busted him and said that he was stealing utilities from the city. And the irony of that is that same city had free charging stations set up throughout the city for electric cars.
Oh, my gosh. How's that for discrimination against the poor and for the rich? Because only rich people have electric cars.
Absolutely. It's
what is
ridiculous.
That, San Francisco?
I don't remember the city it was in. I think it was in Florida somewhere.
Yeah, it sounds like something crazy San Francisco would do. Hanging your clothes out to dry. We need to hang some of these politicians out to dry. But hanging your clothes out to dry, what's up with that?
A city passed an ordinance saying that they were going to make it a criminal offense just for hanging clothes out to dry in your front yard. It was okay to do it in the backyard, but the front yard was just too much for this city. And a ticket wouldn't suffice, so
put you in jail.
Put you in jail for it.
Man, oh man! I mean, I just don't. So we'll go back to my thesis at the beginning here. We know from other regimes, Hitler, for example, was a common practice for Hitler. He would surround himself with various people that he would use as long as he needed to use. But his overcriminalization of Germany had all of them guilty of various offenses that when he was done with them, he just had them arrested.
Well, what we're seeing now is that there are so many things that are illegal, and it's such a trap that, basically what the federal government can do is they can come in and see that you're doing something that they don't like, and then they can search the code and search statutes for any laws that you're violating.
Yeah. So you're basically saying what I'm saying is right, but you don't want to directly say that.
I'm not qualified to talk about.
I see.
Germany
they've got a huge list of things that you've been doing that are illegal, and you just don't want to be one of the first guys thrown in for that. But anyway, tell me a little bit about Rand Paul. I've known Rand Paul now for longer than either one of us want to admit. We were both members of Young Conservatives of Texas at the same time. We were both recruited by the chairman of that organization, the founder of that organization, who's now the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas, Steve Ministeri. So Rand and I go way back, and now there's a lot of buzz, particularly with his father retiring, about him as a potential presidential candidate. He is a champion on curtailing this overcriminalization. What is he doing about it?
He's doing a number of things. I mean, like I said, one of the big issues is regulatory crimes. So he's introduced a couple of pieces of legislation, one being the REINS Act, which would require Congress to affirmatively pass any regulation that affects more than $100 million annually. The other, which is more out there, is the Write the Laws Act, which would, imagine this, Congress would be required to pass these regulations. And then beyond that, he's blocking bad legislation, which is a huge part of it. The Coast Guard Authorization Act, which basically funds the Coast Guard. What happens in these authorization acts is that there must pass pieces of legislation, so a bunch of stuff just gets stuck on there.
Mm-hmm.
And one of these bills that got stuck on there, what it would do is it would increase penalties for catching the wrong kind of fish or the wrong number of fish to 5 years in prison. 5 years in prison.
Unbelievable.
For catching the wrong kind of fish. And,
unbelievable. And, and the thing about that is you can't even ask the fish if it's the right fish because you know it's going to lie.
Right.
So, I mean, that's just unbelievable.
Right. So what Senator Paul did was he brought the Senate to a halt. He used procedural tactics to stop what was going on until that was pulled from the bill. And what I think is
I love that stuff, man. And people don't understand is that, the U.S. Senate is the most unique office. It was originally designed to protect the states from the federal government until the progressives went nuts and decided to make it a redundant House of Congress. It was designed to protect the states from an excessive federal government. And it's given unique powers. As you probably know, the Senate is the only office with the executive, legislative, and judicial branch type of functions with approving treaties and those type of things. And one of its most unique powers is the power of the filibuster. And in fact, that crazy nut that obviously future Alzheimer's patient Senator McCain from Arizona has made a personal battle against Rand Paul in trying to curtail the right of filibuster. It's become personal.
Yeah. Well, going back to this authorization act that he stopped to take this bad part out.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I think is most admirable about it was that it doesn't really affect his constituents. It was on principle. I mean, Kentucky is landlocked. There aren't a lot of fishermen in Kentucky. He wasn't doing this as a favor to his constituents. He was doing it out of the principle of justice.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And what happened? What was the result?
It was taken out, and the Coast Guard Authorization Act was passed without that bill being attached.
Well, and he keeps talking about this. He talks about it more and more every day. His concern about the fact that this is a government completely out of control, doing things that it was never supposed to do, and just chipping away at our individual liberties. We're becoming less and less free. My last guest I had on, Steve Beeman from the Beeman Group up in Illinois. We were talking about this every single day. You know the old story about the frog in the water, and before they knew it, the water was too hot and they were too boiled for them to be able to jump out. That's what's happening every day here in our country, and on so many different levels: regulatory, taxes, government subsidies, etc.
Absolutely, and there's actually something that's probably even more concerning to your listeners is something called the responsible corporate officer doctrine. And what that does is that makes a corporate officer liable for the criminal offenses that his employees commit.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if his employees knew that they were breaking the law, or if they knew there was a law involved, or if the officer knew that there was a law involved. If you have an employee who accidentally moves dirt on a wetland,
mm-hmm.
you as the employer can go to prison for that, even though you didn't do it, you weren't there, and neither of you knew what you were doing was illegal.
I have to wrap it up. Phenomenal information. Where do we get more information? Obviously, heritage.org over at the Foundry. We can find a lot by you over there, correct?
Absolutely, and also overcriminalized.com.
And what was the name of that legislation you just talked about?
The which
the one where people are being thrown in jails for their employees' activities.
It's not even a piece of legislation. It's called the Responsible Corporate Officer Doctrine, and it's something that the Department of Justice has pushed.
Oh, it hasn't passed yet.
No, it's being used, but it's not through a statute. It's just the Department of Justice has been trying to prosecute people based on this theory of criminal law, and the Supreme Court has bought into it.
Oh, my gosh. Unbelievable. All right, his name's Daniel Dew. What do you do over there, by the way?
I'm a visiting legal fellow, and overcriminalization is the topic that I work on.
Yeah, very depressing. Hey, thanks for being with us, buddy.
Thank you so much.
All right, when we come back, much more for you. You need to stay tuned to it. We want to remind you the best content here shows up over at usdailyreview.com, our sister news website. You're listening to The Price of Business.